Alright, so I know that no one gives a shit about this show, but friends, that is precisely why I felt obligated to watch and review it, because despite the marketing's omission, this show is in fact based off a Marvel comic. In fact, like Runaways before it, it is supposedly set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So myself being an MCU fan to my core, I felt I had to give it a chance despite it being dead on arrival. And also, this video is going to be spoiler free because all the episodes came out at once, and I know how binges can be sometimes, it takes a while to watch 10 long episodes. So no spoilers here, sit back, relax, enjoy. Helstrom. So Helstrom is a Hulu original series. Like I said, it's based off Marvel comic characters and supposedly set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but set in it like the Netflix shows are, like Cloak and Dagger and Runaways are. Like they are, but they have nothing to do with the Marvel Cinematic Universe's main story with Thanos and the Avengers. Helstrom is its own standalone story, and before I dive into what the show's about, I should illustrate that this season is just a one-off season. That's why I said the show was dead on arrival. Because Marvel Television and Jeff Loeb, they were planning this Adventure into Fear section of Marvel Television shows that was going to include shows like Ghost Rider, which was canceled, and Helstrom, these darker Marvel characters. And they were going to become their own dark section of the MCU Marvel Television. But unfortunately, those plans were all scrapped. To my knowledge, they were scrapped when Marvel Studios decided to make Disney Plus shows, WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, and Disney wanted to direct all its Marvel TV show focus on those. But when those Adventure into Fear plans were scrapped, this show, Helstrom, its first season was already in production. It was already filming. So they wrapped it up and the show was still contractually obligated to come out. The unfortunate thing is that they treated it like Fox treated the New Mutants. As in, okay, this company's already gone, it's absorbed into Disney, so we're not really gonna care about it that much. The marketing for it isn't even going to include the Marvel logo. It's just a one and done, we're gonna try to forget it ever happened. That is a bummer because I actually thought the show was pretty cool. So now that we have that story out of the way, what is Helstrom about? Well, Helstrom is, I'm pretty sure, as close to the horror genre as Marvel is ever gonna get. In live action anyway. We have these two siblings, Damon and Anna Helstrom. They have these special powers because they are part demon, kind of like Raven from Titans. They have a lot of family drama because their mother is possessed by a demon and their father is a demon. And so this show brings these two siblings together for the first time in years because this ancient evil is acting up, and here we go with our Marvel horror story. And yeah, like I said, I thought this show was pretty cool. It's not without flaws. Off the bat, I'll tell you that I don't think I'm gonna be watching it again anytime soon. However, I did like most of the characters. Damon Helstrom, played by Tom Austin, you take one look at this guy and you're like, that is a British actor if ever I've seen one. You can just tell that these actors hail from the UK just by how they look. They all have a certain look about them. Like most of those main actors in those CW shows that pretend to have American accents, but they're from Britain. But Damon Helstrom, he's kind of boring. He's that bitter, damaged guy. He reminded me of Booker DeWitt from BioShock Infinite. He's always walking around and he's all brooding all the time. I have permanent scars. They'll never heal. He does have personality that does come through sometimes, but those scenes are kind of few and far between. I will say, like, of all the main characters, he is the least interesting, and he is like the main character in the show. If I had to pick one that the show revolves around, I think it would be him. And he's the most boring one. His sister, on the other hand, Anna Helstrom, played by Sydney Lemon, she's got personality for days. I mean, she's got damage too, but at least we see that she is pissed off about it. When the show first starts, her first scene, you see her personality shine through. She'll spit out some witty remarks. She has some funny moments. However, if I'm gonna give some acting props, I'm gonna give some serious props to the actress who plays their mother, Victoria Helstrom. The actress's name is actually Elizabeth Marvel. Believe it or not, that's her name. This woman has some serious acting chops, because this woman has been possessed by a certain demon for like 20 years. Yeah, she's pretty much Linda Blair all grown up if she never got exorcised. Best I can describe it. But what this character does that really amazed me is that she switches from normal mom to possessed by a demon so fast. It's really impressive. It's really cool how she goes from zero to possessed just like that. Like one moment she'll be talking with a normal mom voice. She'll be like, oh, how's my kid? Oh, I'm sorry you're going through that. And then like 5 seconds later, she'll be talking with this really low voice because this demon needs to feed. It was really cool. So big props to Elizabeth Marvel. Best actor in the show, if you ask me. Then you have this character, Gabriella, who's played by Ariana Guerra, who I just gotta say has the cutest, most gorgeous face I've ever seen. Oh my god. There were some points when she talked, I heard whoom, 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 because it was all blurry because her face just, oh man. I actually did have to rewind a couple times because I was distracted. But anyway, her character is the newcomer to this whole Helstrom situation, so she's our eyes and ears, and she does a good job. In fact, her character actually goes through a pretty intense story arc. By the end of the show, you feel really sorry for her. You're like, oh man, I wish you never got dragged into this whole mess. Seriously, you don't deserve it. You're way too pretty. Now, as for the horror element in this show, I'll say it was effective-ish. I mean, when it came to the actual scary shit, it never affected me. I was never up all night because of something I saw in the show. That might have been due to the fact that I didn't watch this show on a big TV screen. I just watched it on my computer. So if ever there was a jump scare, and there were a few in the show, I knew it was coming because it suddenly got very quiet. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna turn the volume down so I'm not blown away by this jump scare. And then when the jump scare happened, I turned the volume back up and I was good. That is kind of cheating, but I don't care because I hate jump scares. Plus, it was a small computer screen, so. But the horror that did get me is the disturbing imagery. This show does have some disturbing imagery at times. In fact, in every episode, there would be at least one thing that made me go, ugh. Whether it was something that lasted just for 5 frames or something that stayed on the screen for a while. So I had to keep looking at it, and it was particularly gross. Like, example, whenever someone got possessed by a demon in the show, one of their eyes would twitch out of place for like a second. Every time that happened, I would be like, ooh, okay, they're possessed. And it looked really creepy. Another example is there's one bad guy in the show, this guy who's possessed by a demon, of course. And to devour his victims, he would open his rib cage. Like, his ribs would open out of his body. You would see it, like it got all bloody, and inside this ribcage stomach was like a sarlacc pit. I did call him Sarlacc Pit Man in my head. Because seriously, it was like his ribcage would open, and then you would see these rows of teeth in a circle where his stomach would be. It was gross. And every time that happened, I would be like, ugh. So props to this show for the disturbing imagery. A+ on that. So if you don't like disturbing imagery, you might want to pass on this show. And like I said, this show is not without its flaws. Is it long and boring sometimes? Yeah, a little. I mean, honestly, all those old Marvel shows are long and boring, at least in some parts. Yeah, the Netflix shows like Daredevil, or even Cloak and Dagger, they all had their long, boring parts at times. And I addressed those in my reviews of those shows, because they took themselves too seriously, and this show is no exception. Sometimes it felt a little long and boring because it was taking itself too seriously. It felt pretty dry and humorless at times. I'm not saying I wanted to be like It, where there was a little too much humor in there for my taste, even though those movies were still completely badass. I'm just saying there's a good balance somewhere that the show just didn't have. And sometimes the acting was, well, you know. Again, I felt the actors were taking the material a little too seriously at times. Like one scene I remember where Anna is on the phone. She's talking about this knife that has a special place in the story. It's like this special cursed knife, and she's on the phone. She's like, that knife is evil. I was just watching like, well, okay, not completely perfect. But the story is very intriguing in Helstrom. I mean, come on, it's demons and possessions. That can be really interesting sometimes if it's executed well, and I felt it was executed well in this show. I mean, this show was pretty much Marvel's version of The Exorcist, if it were 10 hours long. Yeah. I've seen that movie twice. You know, it deals with people who are possessed by demons and there are exorcists in there. It deals with the Catholic religion and the Vatican and holy rituals and all that. I don't know. I was never that religious. Did I just do I don't know. I was raised Jewish, so I don't know much about Catholic demonology. I don't take it that seriously, but I do find that it makes for some pretty cool entertainment at times. I mean, there are some pretty interesting dilemmas that this show brings up. Example, this guy named Henry, he's one of the main characters in the show. He's played by that guy who was the military guy on the bridge in Dark Knight Rises. Robert Wisdom is the actor's name. But he's one of the main characters in the show, and he has this hotel where he's keeping people who are possessed by demons. He's keeping them in comas instead of exorcising them. And there's a conversation that he has with Gabriella where she's like, you could choose to exorcise them so they can live their lives in peace. But his argument is that if the demons are just sent back to hell, then eventually they'll come back and possess someone else. So rather than have that happen, I'd rather just keep these people in comatose states where they can't hurt anybody. So the cool dilemma there is, what would be the better choice? To keep these possessed people in comas or to exorcise them? I don't know. But that's a cool debate for people to have. I want to have that debate with someone. And as far as the action goes in this show, it was pretty cool. I mean, Damon and Anna are fighting these people with hell powers, and there's fire and possessions and exorcisms. It was pretty cool looking shit, I'm not gonna lie. Especially in the finale. Like I said, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but the finale of this show had some pretty cool looking shit. I'd say if you're not gonna watch the show, then just skip to the last episode and watch that. But no, don't cheat like that. If you're gonna watch the show, then watch the show all the way through. Because if you just watch the finale, then you're not gonna know what's going on. You're gonna be lost and confused. But I'm just saying, the finale had some really cool looking shit. And the music in the show was pretty cool. It was emotional when it wanted to be emotional. It was creepy when it wanted to be creepy. Although the theme music did take some getting used to. Because it starts out with this kind of doo-wop, the doom-ba, and then it takes a creepy turn, so that's all good. But what had me scratching my head sometimes was the licensed songs, like the ones that would play during the credits. Because like the end of an episode, things would be going down, it's all intense, you're like, oh, holy shit, and then one of the episodes, the credits plays, and what song is playing? Sunshine Lollipops. Yeah, I'm not kidding, that song plays. And I was just like, okay, 5 seconds ago I was watching something intense and scary. Talk about your mood swings. So that was kind of weird. In the end, I will say Helstrom is entertaining. It is par for the course with all those Netflix Marvel shows, where yeah, it can be seen as long and boring to some, and to others it'll be really intriguing. It has some cool horror stuff, some really disturbing imagery, compelling characters, yeah. It's a show that requires commitment. Like, I really had to drag myself to go back to the show. I could have easily stopped watching at any point. But once I was in it and watching it, I was entertained. I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. You know, it's one of those kind of shows. So watch it or don't watch it, either way, you gotta make a commitment. I'll say it's worth checking out if you're a hardcore Marvel fan, or a hardcore MCU fan. If you're not a hardcore Marvel fan or MCU fan, you might want to pass on this show. Because really, it doesn't have anything you haven't seen before. But it is entertaining. I can't say it's not. I certainly don't regret watching it. Although, like I said, I kind of doubt I'm gonna watch it again. So Helstrom, have you watched it? What did you think about it? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.